Today what I'd like to do is to lead a guided meditation, but I thought before I did that I would tell you just a little bit about my own path and how I ended up becoming a Buddhist priest, because this is not something that I ever expected in my life to do. I was not raised religious. My grandparents were Zen Buddhists, and in fact the first memory I have as a very little tiny person, a 3-year-old, was of my grandfather sitting zazen, sitting in meditation. And I remember this because you know how you have those memories, those early childhood memories, right? And my memory goes something like this, that there's a door handle, right? And I'm reaching up for the door handle, and that's how I know that I'm really little, right? I'm reaching up for the door handle, and I open it, and it's to my parents' bedroom, right? And I'm opening the door, and I look in, and I see an old Japanese man sitting on the floor, right? And this is weird, because this is in New Haven, Connecticut, right? And grown-ups did not sit on the floor in New Haven, Connecticut. Like, it just didn't happen, okay? And so I open the door, and there's this very old Japanese man, and he's sitting on the floor, and his eyes are closed, but then he must have heard me, and he opened his eyes, and we made eye contact, okay? And this was also really weird because, you know, I was like this small, right? And so to make eye contact with a grown-up, you know, at this level that was the first time in my whole life that this had happened. And there was this moment of a kind of connection that I felt at that moment. And in Zen, we talk a lot about face-to-face transmission, right? This idea that the practice that we do is a very physical practice, right? You know, the meditation practice is a very physical practice, and it is transmitted wordlessly, okay? So it doesn't depend on words and concepts and ideas, right? It's just a moment of, you know, of meeting face to face, where you meet somebody and something happens, right? And I think that happened with my grandfather when I was 3, although, you know, this is also a little bit of a story that I'm telling you, right? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but it was meaningful to me, and I can certainly say that. It was very meaningful. When I was growing up, I was very interested in meditation. This was during the 1960s. Everybody was interested in meditation, right? You know, the Beatles had made meditation like really popular, and so I remember probably when I was about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9, sitting on my bedroom floor with a birthday candle, right, and you know, lighting it and watching it, right, and thinking, this is meditation. I'm enlightened now, right, and you know. I was probably more enlightened back then than I am now. And then when I was 14, I remember I got involved with transcendental meditation, and I received a mantra. I was initiated, and I received a mantra, and that was a sound meditation, right? That was a meditation based on repeating a sound. And then, you know, life just unfolded. I ended up in Japan and got very involved in the Zen arts there, and you know, no drama and flower arrangement, which are all considered to be Zen arts. But it was really only when I came back to this country, and I was in my 30s, and my parents were quite elderly by then. They had me late, and so they were getting on. My mother by then had Alzheimer's, and my dad had a whole series of heart attacks, right? And so, you know, sickness and mortality, you know, were right there. Suddenly I was confronting this for the first time. And traditionally this is the first, the Buddha called it the first noble truth, right? The noble truth of suffering, right? That we all suffer. Right? We all struggle right? And I think we know that. It sounds very scary. It sounds like, ooh, you know, suffering is the first noble truth. But when you think about it, we all struggle, right? Everyone struggles. You know, and all the Buddha is saying is that that's natural. It's normal to struggle. It's normal to suffer. And I think this is something, it sounds so simple to say, right? But for some reason in this culture, we think that suffering is a problem. And if we suffer, then there's something terribly wrong that needs to be fixed. And usually there's something terribly wrong with us, right? And this is really, I think, a big difference. You know, the Buddhist approach, you know, the Buddhist way of looking at life and our way of looking at life here. And so this idea that, you know, that suffering is something that is normal and, you know, that we all share, and, you know, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us, right, if we suffer. This to me is very comforting, because when, you know, it takes the pressure off a little bit. So this, you know, when I was in my 30s, I really did, you know, I got it, that, you know, that my parents were reaching the end of their lives. I was going to have to take care of them. I was going to have to somehow usher them into the next, you know, into this next part of whatever it is that's beyond, right? And so I was really suffering then. And this is when I got very serious about meditation, because I realized that meditation was something that I could do it was a practice. It was something that I could do physically with my body and with my mind that would help stabilize me, right? And it would help me somehow sit through the suffering. It would help me sit through the pain of this. And so I got very serious about meditation and started, you know, practicing first with a Tibetan group, and then later I met my teacher, Norman Fisher, probably when I was about 40 or so, and have studied, and ironically, he's a Zen practitioner, which was the same religion, the same school of Buddhism that my grandfather had practiced, okay? So, except Norman Fisher is this Jewish guy from Pennsylvania, right? And, you know, and he is now my Zen teacher. So that seems appropriate too, I think. And he's the founder of Everyday Zen, the foundation that Jeannie mentioned. And so I invite you too to check it out. He's got hundreds, thousands actually, of Dharma talks online. And it's just everydayzen.org. And I'm the editor of that site, so this is a little bit of, you know, shameless self-promotion here, but that's okay. They're wonderful talks, and you know, I would really recommend that you check it out if you're interested. So then I started studying with Norman and practicing with Norman and his community, and in Buddhism we call it a sangha. It's a community of practitioners. And the reason that we call it a practice is because it is a practice, right? It's like, you know, it's like anything, it's like sports, right? You practice it. It's like music. You practice it. You practice it so that you get better, right? And so that's the way we refer to it. And so I started practicing with this group, and then in 2010, 10 years after I started practicing with Norman, I asked him for ordination. And my reason for doing so, even though I'd never been particularly interested in, you know, in formal religion, I suddenly, I realized that this was a practice that had helped me so much in such profound ways, and it was so simple. And I wanted to be a part of this lineage to help pass it along. Right? I just wanted to be a link in the chain. And so I asked for ordination, and then, you know, had to, you know, there are various things that I had to do. I had to study, I had to do a monastic residency, and then in 2010 I was ordained. I'm still what is considered to be a novice priest, which means that I still have a formal relationship with my teacher. There's various, you know, the next thing that would be Dharma transmission, and that will happen at some point. But I also have so many other hats, you know, as a novelist and also as a professor, that it just takes me so long to do anything. But, you know, I also realize that I'm in absolutely no hurry. You know, it takes the time it takes. Everything takes the time it takes. And that includes novels, that includes, you know, study, that includes Buddhism. So I'm not in any particular hurry. So the reason I wanted to share this all with you is partly to give you a sense of my background, but also because it's a tradition in my lineage to give this kind of talk at the beginning. And it's called a way-seeking mind talk. Okay, way-seeking mind. And the way refers to the Buddhist way, okay, the Buddhist path. And we think of it as a path, it's a journey, right? So it's called the way-seeking mind, and it's a kind of a spiritual autobiography, a little bit, okay? So I wanted to share that with you. It was funny because when I first heard the term, you know, a way-seeking, you know, somebody told me, you know, you're going to have to give a way-seeking mind talk, and what I heard was a way-seeking mind, like, you know, like away, like you want to escape, right? And so I was very confused by that at first, but then I understood what it was. So I wanted to share that with you, and then I think what I'd like to do is to lead you in a guided meditation. And before I do that, I guess too, I wanted to say that there are many different ways to meditate. Okay, there's no one right way. In the same way that there is no one right way to read a novel. Right. We've talked about that, I think, in some of the classes. There's no right way to do this. There are many different ways, and I've practiced in my life. I've practiced in many different traditions as well. And so, what I'm going to do today is lead a guided meditation that is. It's related to what we do in Zen, but it's not exactly what we do in Zen. It's a kind of a more ecumenical approach to meditation, and I think it's especially helpful because it's very much focused on the body, and I think that certainly, you know, now perhaps more than ever we hold so much tension in our bodies, and so it seems to me that the body is a wonderful place. You know, we all have them, which is good. You might not, you know, when we were all on Zoom, it was hard to remember even that we had bodies, right? We were just like these flat faces. So now we all have bodies again, which is good. You know, this is nice to have a body. And so it's a good place, I think, to start. So does that sound good for everybody? Okay, cool. So I'm going to sit down because you're all sitting. And I should also say that the Buddha taught that there are 4 noble postures, okay, for meditation, and that's sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. Okay, so we won't do the lying down one now because, you know, everybody will fall asleep. So we'll do a sitting meditation. But this too is another, you know, to point out that for some people, you know, sitting quietly, sitting in silence with, you know, with your mind, right, is difficult, right? And so for people who find it difficult to, you know, to sit, you can also do, you know, we won't do it today, but you know, you should experiment with walking meditation, right? And we can talk about that a little bit later. So there's many different kinds of meditation. There's many different ways to do it. There's no wrong way, and we'll talk more about that at the end. Okay. So. Okay, good. Oh, I can see everybody. That's nice. All right, let me get some water. Okay. So the first thing I'd like to invite you to do is to find a seat and plant both feet firmly on the floor. Okay. Good. And I'm looking at the pews, and I'm realizing that the pews are kind of, the seats are sort of tilted back, right? So you're probably leaning against the pews. That's fine. If if it's uncomfortable, what I like to do is I like to sit forward in my chair and not lean back, because I like this feeling of sitting upright. But if that's not comfortable, then forget about it. Just sit however is comfortable for you. Okay. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable and relaxed. Okay, that you're able to find a posture that is comfortable and relaxed. All right. And so, you know, it's nice to have your feet firmly on the floor so that you're forming a kind of tripod almost, which is a very stable, you know, position with your hips and bottom on the chair, and then your feet firmly on the floor. And if you'd like, you can put your hands on your knees. Again, that's kind of stabilizing. And then I invite you to close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, take a couple of deep breaths. Just breathe at your own pace. And notice what it feels like to be consciously breathing. It's nice just to get back in touch with this activity that we do all day, but most of the time we don't even notice. And then bring a little bit of movement into your body. And by that I mean just rock back and forth. Maybe shift your weight a little bit from side to side. And notice what that feels like. Notice the feeling of your weight shifting. And then find a still spot in the center. Now, it's kind of a practice of centering yourself. And then we'll do a body scan. And so first, I just invite you to bring your awareness to the top of your head. And notice any sensations on your scalp. You might not feel anything. You might feel a little sort of prickling sensation, or nothing at all. But just start by bringing your awareness to the very top of your body. And then from there, allow your awareness to drop into your forehead and into your temples, your brow. And notice if there's any tension there. Are the muscles tight at all? And if they are, just relax. Just loosen, soften. Allow that place to relax. And then allow your awareness to drop down into your cheeks, your jaw, your mouth, your whole face. You know, our faces do so much work for us. They're constantly working. So this is just a nice chance to give your face a rest. Just softening your face. And shifting your awareness to the back of your head. Allow it to drop down, tracing the back of your head into your neck, your throat, and all the way down into your shoulders. I think we carry a lot of tension in our faces and in our neck and shoulders as well. So use this as an opportunity to take a rest and to relax. If it helps to shrug your shoulders a little bit just to remember where they are. You can do that. And then allow your awareness to drift down your arms, your elbows, your forearms, your hands, your palms. If your hands are resting on your knees, just notice that point of contact. Notice the places where your palms meet your knees. Notice any sensations there. And then on the next inhalation, bring your awareness back up into your chest, the upper part of your chest. And take a couple of deep breaths again here. And notice the way that your breathing expands and contracts your rib cage as the air fills your lungs. And you might notice some other little sensations too. Just noticing perhaps the cloth of your shirt rubbing against your skin. Just tiny little sensations that are occurring all the time, but most of the time we're not aware of it. And then allow your awareness to drop down into your solar plexus and all the way down into your stomach. And here, take a moment to radically relax your stomach. Just relax your belly and let it hang out. Again, I think our stomachs, we hold a lot of tension in our bellies. And it's nice just to give your belly a break. So just really relax your stomach muscles. I find that sometimes takes a while. I can't relax all at once. So sometimes it takes several breaths. And each time I find myself relaxing just a little bit more. So experiment with that a little bit, with the relationship between the breath and the stomach. You might find that relaxing the stomach muscles helps you breathe a little bit more deeply. And then allow your awareness to shift to the back of your body, starting up at your neck and tracing all the way down your spine. Very slowly, just following the line of the spine. If you're leaning against the back of the chair, notice how that feels. If you're sitting upright, notice how that feels. All the way down into your hips and your pelvis. And again here, notice the weight of your body being held by the pew these old pews that have supported so many people, now supporting you. Just give your weight to the pew. And then continue moving your awareness into your legs, your knees, your shins, calves, ankles, all the way down into your feet. And again here, noticing the sensation of your feet against the floor. And then on the next inhalation, bring your awareness back up and allow it to move through your body. And if there were any places where you noticed tension the first time through, just very gently return to those places and see if you can help those places relax with this gentle touch of your awareness. Maybe it's your forehead, your throat, your face, neck and shoulders, your stomach. It's helpful to learn where we hold our attention. And so the more you practice this, the easier it is to locate the tension in your body and to help yourself relax. Just that little bit of releasing. And you might start noticing, too, other sensations. You might start noticing sound. Sound entering your body through the sense gates of your ears. And you might notice smell or taste. Touch. And even with your eyes closed, you can notice the quality of light playing on your eyelids. All of this is happening right now. With your sense gates open, you can be aware of everything that's happening right now just as it is. Nothing needs to be different. Then you can bring your awareness to the breath. You don't have to change the breath, just notice as it comes in and out. And just try for a little while resting your attention on the breath. If that's not comfortable, you can rest your attention on sound, on sensation. The breath is a nice object of meditation, though, because it's always there. And if thoughts come while you're focusing on the breath, it's not a problem. Minds are meant to think. That's what they do. And at some point, if you get pulled away by a thought, you'll notice that that's happened. And then just very gently return your awareness back to the breath, back to the body. And so we'll sit for another couple of minutes in silence, just being aware of the breath, being aware of everything that's happening right now, right here. And then you can bring a little bit of movement back into your body, just keeping your eyes closed. Again, shifting your weight from side to side. You can twist a little bit in your seat and see how that feels. Just moving very slowly. You can roll your head around a little bit. Stretch your neck. If you'd like, you can rub your face with your hands. Rub your eyes. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. you're all still here. That's great. It's possible, everybody could leave while I'm sitting here. I'm just talking to an empty room, That could happen. I'm always a little bit relieved, like, oh, nice. So that was a kind of combined sort of guided meditation, but also meditation instruction. So it was kind of both at once. And when you're practicing on your own, it doesn't have to be that involved, right? That was, I led you through a very, very slow, very detailed body scan, right? And that was just to kind of give you the experience of doing that. And you've probably done it before. If you've taken yoga classes, you've probably done similar kinds of things. But it's just nice to remember that I like to do it that way, because it's nice to remember that that meditation, although we have this kind of notion that meditation is something that we're doing with our minds, right? We want to clear the mind, empty the mind, settle the mind. We have all these kinds of ideas about the mind. But I really think that meditation is something that we do with our bodies, right? And the mind kind of takes care of itself. And certainly, by choosing an object of meditation, like, for example, the breath, but again, if the breath isn't comfortable, then the sound is a nice thing to focus on, You can also, you come back to the body, right? That, it reminds you that, to stay grounded in the body. And I often think of the mind as a kind of muscle. And there's a metaphor in Zen about the hand of the mind, right? And so when you think about it, like if you imagine, your mind as a hand, right? And usually when we're not meditating, right, in our normal lives, we have a thought, right? A thought comes up, like, I'm not gonna speculate what your thoughts might be, but mine is like, something like, like, oh, I have to get on a plane this afternoon, right? And so then, that thought comes up, and my mind usually will grab onto that thought, like my mind, contracts like a fist around that thought, and it kind of pulls me away, into the future, because, I'm going to be flying this afternoon, right? So it sort of pulls me out of the present into the future, right? Or, maybe you have a thought about the past. Most of our thoughts are about the past or the future, right? And so maybe you have a thought about the past. It's like, oh, I said this thing in one of the classes, and I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I'd said that better. And then, again, my mind kind of clenches and pulls me back into the past. It pulls me out of the present moment. And so I think the trick is to really, through practice, I think what we learn is to relax the hand of the mind, so that when we're sitting in meditation, in the same way that when we did the body scan, right, I was encouraging you to relax the muscles in your forehead, relax the muscles in your throat, relax the muscles in your belly, right? You can sort of imagine doing the same thing with the mind, right? So that thoughts come. Thoughts are always going to come, right? They're always going to come. But if you relax the hand of the mind, then the thoughts, and return to the breath, return to the body, in other words, return to the sensation of sitting here now, right? Then the thoughts will go away on their own, right? And they'll probably come back again, right? That's what thoughts do, right? The mind is doing this constantly, but that's okay. And in Buddhism, in Zen, we often talk about meditation as the practice of return, okay? In other words, it's not that we're trying to empty the mind or anything like that. It's just we're trying to be mindful of when our thoughts, pull us away from the moment, the present moment, right? Pull us into the future, pull us into the past. Isn't it funny that the past is always back here and the future is always there? There's a tribe, the Ayamaro tribe in Peru, they conceive of it backwards, or backwards to me. They think of the past as being out here because I can see it, right? Whereas the future is back there because I can't see it, right? Because we can't see the future. So that's all, that's a little digression on time. But it's a construct, right? We made this up. So in any case, this idea that meditation is a practice of return, and the point is that you are mindful, you catch yourself thinking, you catch yourself moving away from the present moment, and then you return. You return to the body, you return to the breath, right? And so as long as you're doing that's really all you have to focus on. You're meditating, right? As long as you eventually, but sometimes it takes a while, right? Sometimes it takes a long time, right? You catch yourself, but then it's like, oh, right, and you return. And you return to the body, you return to the breath. You can check in all the places, where you hold tension, relax, right? So it's this practice of just coming back, coming back, coming back. And after a while, you do this, and you develop an enormous amount of confidence and faith that you will be able to return, right? That no matter where your mind, spirals out, that you have this body, you have this breath, you have these sense gates, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your skin, and that you can always return to this moment, right? And so it's this, the repetition of this, the practice of this, will eventually, I think, lead to that kind of comfort and faith, right? You become very intimate with your mind that way, right? And very often, of course, we all think that we're doing it wrong, right? It's like, oh, I'm not meditating right. But you become very, aware of those kinds of negative thoughts as well. And they're just thoughts, that's all, like any other thought. And so you just relax the hand of the mind and let it go, right? And return to the body, return to the breath. So that's that's the practice, and you can do it very in short little amounts of time. It doesn't take a long time, but I encourage you to try it. So, thank you. Thanks.